Hi, I'm Dr. Bertice Berry, and I want to tell you a story. I grew up without a father, but that doesn't mean I was fatherless. Every time I see those forms that seek to throw somebody into a statistic, and I love those statistics, but it doesn't tell the whole story. Statistics are supposed to gather up the information and not just tell you one story, but tell you all the stories and tell you where the middle of that story is, where the outliers are. They never ask, did you have a father? Like, if you didn't have a father in your house, did you still have a father? I was really blessed to have several. Had them in the form of my music teacher, Mr. Leander Morris, in my pastor, Reverend Ross Rainey, and in Mr. George Harold Thompson. Mr. Thompson was my best friend Tia's father. Now, you've heard me tell the story of the buttering of the corn, and if you haven't, you want to go back and listen for that one. Mr. Thompson is the reason why I believe in many ways that I am as educated as I am. He was an educator, and his wife, Mrs. T, or Mom, or Grammy, she's got all of those names, she had a daycare center in her house, so education was like a big thing. I was about 6 months from graduating high school, maybe a little bit more. So I was 17 years old. And one day I came home, and my mom had been home for some reason. She came home early or something. Maybe she was still there and we didn't know it. She was crying, and my mother did a lot of things. She did not show weakness, and for her, crying would have been weakness. She had gotten a letter from the city saying that they were going to be tearing down our houses. We were renting, and we had to move right away. And right away, I think, was a couple of days later. Now, I don't know if a letter had come before and we hadn't gotten it or what happened, but we had to move right away. So right away, for a mom with a bunch of kids and renting, was not going to be the next day. It took a while before my mother could find a house and some people who would rent to a single mom and a bunch of kids. And back then in the 70s. So we had to move into a temporary shelter housing for families. So it was like homeless shelter. But it was 3 bus rides away from my high school. Now, Tia and I had been hanging out since preschool. We went to preschool together. We didn't go to middle school together. We went to elementary school together and high school together. And we hung out in high school every single day. So I remember Pop, Mr. T, everybody in Wilmington called him Mr. T, called us in the room, Tia and I thought, what has Tia done now and blaming me for? And Tia would say, what has Bertice done now and blaming me for? And he told us to sit down, and he looked right at me and he said, if you have to catch 3 buses every day to get to school, you're going to miss some buses. And right now, you're about to graduate, and we can't have you missing any buses. So, me and Mom have decided that you're going to stay here with us until graduation. And so I did. About maybe 10, 12 years ago, when I was a little longer, my mom passed away, and I was going to have my first Thanksgiving without her. They decided that they would come down here and have Thanksgiving with me. So the whole family had Thanksgiving with my family. We've been having those holiday dinners together ever since. Because Mr. T looked around and said, I always wondered why my mother wanted to move back to the South, and now I get it. And 15 minutes after being here, he decided they were moving here. And so I had my family again right across the street from me. Yesterday, we had a beautiful time singing, reading scripture, and telling him how much we love him. And I'm so fortunate. I'm so blessed that Monica, George, Tia shared their father with me. But they didn't just share him with me. Antonio is here every Thanksgiving. Lenny and Frank, neighborhood kids, were always over. Every kid whose life he touched at school, there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of kids who were not fatherless because of Mr. T. That mighty man moved so many people, even on the day he died. People were coming by the room and saying, keep this singing up, keep going, please, we need it. And then when all the doctors came in to pronounce him, his physician said, is there any other questions that you all may have? His nurse asked the same thing. We looked at them all and said, we're going to ask you what he would ask you. Are you right with the Lord? Are you treating your family right? Are you taking care of all the kids? Because they are the future. No one is a statistic when there's love. I love you.
All the light and the burdens of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy.